All right, so yesterday I was sitting in class and I noticed a bunch of tweets coming out from Destiny Bulletin, and whenever that happens, there's a lot of changes happening to the game, okay? I was posting them all throughout the Discord, and it was, at first, all I saw was the exotic weapons tuning updates, and they were posting out one at a time, but obviously they're getting all of their information here from the game post. So we're going to go through and we're going to look at all of these exotic weapons. We're going to talk about them one by one and make sure that you guys are understanding what all is changing whenever Ash and Iron gets released. All right. So first off, Mida Multi-Tool is apparently getting a buff. All right. Added a new trait to called Mida Software Package. Getting enough kills with Mida Multi-Tool now provides various buffs and an incremental PvE damage bonus after reaching certain thresholds. For the life of me, I've never really seen anybody using Mida Multi-Tool in PvE. There was a stint back whenever D2 first released back in the day where Mida Multi-Tool was like the thing to be using in PvP. But stage 1 here, we get 25% faster handling and ADS speed and 5% PvE damage. Stage 2, 15 range and stability. I assume that's an increase of 15 in range and stability and 5% PvE damage. So we're getting 5% every stage, it looks like. For damage. Stage 3, 15% aim assist, magnetism ranges, 5% cone angle, 5% PvE damage. Stage 4, shots detonate on impact. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's a nice little thing that the multi-tool is going to do now. Kills with weapons that have Mida Synergy, Mida Multi-Tool, or Mida Mini-Tool, intrinsic, also grant progress towards these buffs. So now you get that synergy back between the mini tool and multi-tool. A little bit more of that. On death, you regress to the beginning of the previous stage, so we go one stage back. The radar while aiming functionality has been moved to the intrinsic, so that's intrinsic trait. And then exotic catalyst, replace no distractions with brand new catalyst. While the enemy is in close proximity and Mida Multi-Tool is in hand, you are granted enhanced radar resolution and improved reload speed, 20 reload stat, 15 reload scalar. Okay. Very slightly increased the movement speed bonus. So very cool. Movement speed, new stage system for the getting kills with the Mida Multi-Tool. Good PvE damage buff as well. This might be fun to play around with. I don't see this, breaking the mold on anything, but it is a fun new way. It makes Mida Multi-Tool not completely irrelevant in PvE. It makes it maybe fun to use in PvE is what I'm seeing here. Storm and Stress, rapid kills with Together Forever weapons within 3 seconds of each other. Now load extra Sturm overcharged shots. Primary ammo Together Forever weapon. Load even more Sturm overcharged shots. Sturm overcharged shot bonus has been tuned. Previously, this was roughly a 261% damage buff against all combatants and a 78% buff against players in PvP. Now values are as follows: 260 against bosses. Oh, they split them up all the way. Pretty much relatively the same in PvP, and kind of tuned it higher against minors and majors, a little higher on mini bosses and champions, and relatively the same against just bosses. Okay. Maximum Sturm overcharge reduced to 25 from the cap of 99. A little bit easier to get to that cap. Cool changes for Sturm. Not really anything that impressive. I like that they spread this damage around a little bit. Eriana's Vow, a lens flare will now be visible on opposing players' Eriana's Vow in PvP. Perfect. All right, so I mean, obviously you get a good scope with the Eriana's Vow. It has been used a lot, apparently, with the new updates and everything since Edge of Fate launched, giving that little glare to give people a little warning that you're getting aimed at with something a little bit more powerful is good, because obviously Eriana's Vow is kind of a huge hit. Graviton Spike, reduced time to gain overcharge shots from 20 seconds to 7 seconds. Reduced time to gain temporal alignment. Catalyst buff from infinite to 7 seconds. So kind of just like a little balance here. A little bit of a nerf, a little bit of a buff there. No, reduce the time to gain the overcharge shots. So is that... I haven't played with Graviton Spike. Let me just be honest. Is this... You're going to get quicker overcharge shots, I assume? Or this is the time you have to gain those overcharge shots, and then it'll run out. So it's pretty much like a nerf all the way around is what I'm seeing here. A little Graviton balancing. It seems like they're kind of like bringing it down a little bit, though. You have to get these overcharge shots a little bit quicker is what it seems. Tarrabah, this is one of the ones that big PvP nerf. That's what I thought. Okay, so you have to get the overcharge shots quicker for them to work, so you don't get to hold on to them for as long. That's what that seems like to me. I haven't played with Graviton Spike. I know that if I'm thinking about the use in PvP, I would think they want to nerf it because it is being overused. Anytime something's used a lot in Destiny, Bungie's like, nerf it to the ground.
Nobody can use that. No fun. Fun was detected, so turn it off.
I assume obviously they were going to nerf this to the ground because I've seen a lot of people using that in PvP videos I've been seeing. Tarrabah, obviously, if you are a Titan, you know that this has been one of the things that people have been using, especially with Solar being on the artifact this season. Good SMG to use with Peacekeepers. So obviously, like I said, if you're using it, Bungie says nerf, okay? Reduce Peacekeepers bonus damage when using Tarrabah and Ravenous Beast active from 100% to 70%, just to kind of tune down your damage output on Titans that are crutching Tarrabah for the new seasonal artifact. But obviously, as you guys know, there are other SMGs to use, so just nerfing the one exotic SMG does not help solve the SMG Peacekeeper Thunder Crash meta that is happening with Titans. So this is just one SMG. Use your imagination. Go find another one, possibly the one from Desert Federal with rewind rounds and target lock. Hawkmoon. Lucky Pants now buffs the damage of the Paracausal shot, but at lower than normal efficiency. I assume that means it's supposed to say efficiency. 50% buff at illegally modded holster times 10. Cool buff to Hawkmoon there. Hunters are gonna love that. A little bit of fun for PvP, I guess. Obviously, I don't play PvP, so it doesn't really matter to me. I'm not gonna use this in PvE. New Land Beyond. This was a dumb buff, to be honest. There was no reason for this buff, to be honest. Like, I saw them do this, and I looked at the tweet, and I'm like, this is what we're focusing on? So, New Land Beyond, the perk counter previously capped at 100, and it now stacks up to 999. But why, you might ask? It's for bragging rights. There's no other reason to do this other than I have a big number. Look at the big number I got. The increased damage is still capped at 100. Focusing on this is not what we should be doing. We were expending effort to do this for no reason. Don't do that, please. Please. Lord of Wolves decrease release the wolves damage versus bosses by 20%. Obviously, bosses is pretty much the only thing we were using Lord of Wolves on, unless you were speed running any type of activities and just kind of having Lord of Wolves and being able to do like the mini bosses and stuff like that. All you were using Lord of Wolves on was pretty much the big guys to do some pretty good burst damage. But obviously, they see we're still using it. We've been using it since they updated the release the wolves, and we've been using it for damage on pretty much everything that's up close and personal for the most part. We spammed it in Ride of the Nine. I can see why they're still kind of trying to nerf this and get it out of people's hands. Because obviously it is still a go-to, and we want to see the meta shift to being a more balanced use. I haven't been using Lord of Wolves, honestly, all that much, but not really that big of a nerf for me. Grand Overture, this one's a fun one, because obviously you're using Grand Overture to build up stacks during like ad clear areas, unless you're just building up your stacks while you're shooting at the boss whenever you go to damage, but usually you want to have those stacks built up beforehand. So reduce the total reserves from 58 to 48. This is kind of a big...
That's what she said!
a big swing in how much total damage output you're going to be able to do with Grand Overture. Because usually you're just sitting there continuously shooting this thing, sending out the micro missiles. Kind of a huge nerf to what this thing can do at a long damage phase. So we're probably not going to use it for any of the long damage phases. But the catalyst now, Omega Strike micro missiles no longer require a direct hit. Direct hit kills for enemies to explode. Enemies killed by its blast radius now also trigger the explosion. So you're going to see a lot more explosions whenever you have the catalyst here. So this is a pretty fun one whenever you're building up the stacks, killing some enemies and stuff like that. But be careful wasting your ammo because it has gone down 10 whole shots, a whopping like 20% of the mag there, somewhere around there. So kind of huge on that one. Queensbreaker, reduced damage versus bosses by 8%. Nobody's really using too much Queensbreaker anymore unless you're Inner. For some reason, he always has Queensbreaker out. Obviously, the LFR meta is not really happening anymore right now, but obviously it was still pretty good, right? Reduce decreased charge rate via combat sites by 15%. Reduce the decreased charge rate? So does that mean it's slower on the combat sites? I don't know what you're trying to say here. I assume they made it slower. Obviously, you get the catalyst. You have rewind rounds on this, so it's not as bad of a swing. 8% is not all that much damage of a nerf. Just to be able to use Queensbreaker, but obviously just when it's in meta. Outbreak Perfected, this is a huge one. A lot of people have been crushing this all throughout DP. Reduce the damage-based recharge super contribution. So a lot of people have been spamming this to get their supers back, because obviously in Desert Perpetual, you know that there are long damage phases and you want to spam as many supers as possible, and Outbreak helps you get the damage. Getting hits with Outbreak gives you super refresh or super regen. So that's what people were using this for. So they kind of reduce the base damage recharger for the super contribution and slightly reduce the nanites, also recharging your super as well. So double hit on that. You're going to see a little bit of a drastic change to how much super that you're getting back from Outbreak. So whenever this goes into effect, we'll have to play around with it, obviously, and see how much we actually notice that during damage. Obviously, this is probably not going to be any of the featured weapons. This is not going to be the featured weapon on the new season whenever it comes out, whenever they switch up weapons. So we might be seeing a new shift to using a different weapon anyway. Big change to Outbreak here. Borrow Dyad, more of the same. Reduce the charge of the super for the non-seeker rounds on slightly for the regular shots, and then reduce damage based recharge your super contribution via the Taken Seeker rounds as well. So whenever you do that hard reload and you get the Taken Seeker rounds, big reduce on the super energy that you're getting back from that, but only slightly from the regular shots. More of the same with Hierarchy. They are reducing the super recharge via the Guidance Ring arrows. So whenever you get the Guidance Ring out, those multiple hits that you get from that, you're going to see less super regeneration coming from that. And finally, with Thunderlord, obviously with Thunderlord, we knew that it was not meant to be an infinite fired weapon. That is not its intended purpose with the Catalyst. So fixed an issue where the Thunderlord Catalyst, where it was refilling more ammo than intended. So this is actually going to deplete to the point where you have to reload Thunderlord now. So be careful with that. Make sure that you are behind a barricade where you can reload, or if you're a hunter, maybe you're dodging and reloading if you're using this, things of that nature. So Unk damage has been nerfed officially. So we'll see how that works out whenever we come in with the new Ash and Iron. And then Whirling Ovation. I do like this change. They increase the rate at which the Anticipation builds. A fairly optimized damage rotation utilizing Whirling Ovation should see the Anticipation meter time decrease from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. Less optimized damage rotations will see a more significant fill time decrease. So this is going to make it more optimal to use in an actual rotation and getting back to Whirling Ovation and charging it. So this is going to be cool. I like it anytime they kind of move towards doing damage rotations or high skill damage output, and kind of nerfing the low skill sit there and hold the trigger damage. So it kind of balances those, high skill differentials whenever you're doing damage. So I do like this change to Whirling Ovation. I want to see more buffs and damage rotations, such as rocket launchers, grenade launchers, getting back to that meta and having fun with the damage and not just standing there holding a trigger, right? So very cool change with Whirling Ovation here. And that does it for the exotic weapon updates that we were seeing all day yesterday. I'm sure there's going to be more in patch notes as we get closer to Ash and Iron, but that does it for the exotic weapon tuning. If you enjoyed the video or found it informative, please make sure you like, comment, share it with a friend, follow and subscribe to know which platform you're on. I will see you in the next one.